A Few Good Men walked into theaters in December 1992 and never left. Rob Reiner's courtroom drama took three of the biggest stars in Hollywood, put them in military uniforms, and pointed them at each other in a room with no special effects, no car chases, and no explosions. Just words, sweat, and a moment of truth that hit audiences like a punch in the chest. Tom Cruise played Lieutenant Daniel Kaffee, a Navy lawyer who would rather make a deal than fight a fight. Jack Nicholson played Colonel Nathan Jessup, a man so sure of his own power, he believed the rules didn't apply to him. Demi Moore played Lieutenant Commander Joanne Galloway, the one person who refused to let the truth get buried. Kevin Bacon played the prosecutor trying to bury it. Kevin Pollak played the loyal partner who kept everyone honest. And Kiefer Sutherland played a military officer so cold and stiff, he barely seemed human. The film earned $243 million worldwide, on a budget of around $40 million. It scored 4 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture. It gave the world one of the most repeated lines in movie history, and behind every frame of it sat stories that never made it into the press kit. Real tragedies, real fights, real secrets the studio hoped nobody would ever dig up. Today we are pulling back the curtain on 15 insane facts about A Few Good Men. The true crime that started everything. The iconic line nobody wrote. The actress who showed up to audition 8 months pregnant. The military that wanted nothing to do with the movie. And the man who wrote this entire story on cocktail napkins behind a bar. Before we get into it, hit like and subscribe so you never miss our deep dives into the movies that changed the way we watch films. Now, let's go to court. Number 1. The story came from a real attack at Guantanamo Bay in 1986. People walked out of A Few Good Men thinking they had just watched a made-up thriller. They were wrong. The whole thing started with a real event. In 1986, a group of Marines at the United States Naval Base at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, carried out an unauthorized punishment against a fellow Marine named Willie, who had reported a fellow serviceman for firing a rifle across the fence line into Cuban territory. In the real incident, the victim was not killed. He was badly hurt. His lungs filled with fluid during the attack. 9 Marines were involved. 7 of those 9 accepted discharges from the military rather than face a full court-martial. 2 others chose to fight the charges. The whole case unfolded almost exactly the way Aaron Sorkin would eventually write it, with a young Marine reporting his own unit and paying a terrible price for it. Sorkin didn't hear about this case from a newspaper. He heard it from his sister, Deborah Sorkin, who was a Navy JAG lawyer at the time, and experienced the case from almost the same angle as the character Joanne Galloway, a woman in a military legal system, watching from the inside as something got covered up. That conversation between a brother and sister became one of the most celebrated courtroom films ever made. The studio would later smooth over the real details to protect everyone involved, but the bones of the story were true from the beginning. Number 2. Aaron Sorkin wrote the whole thing on cocktail napkins. When Aaron Sorkin came up with the idea for A Few Good Men, he was not a famous writer. He was not a writer at all, at least not professionally. He was a bartender. He was working shifts behind the bar during performances of the Broadway musical La Cage aux Folles, and in whatever quiet moments he could find between orders, he grabbed cocktail napkins and wrote ideas down, character names, lines of dialogue, bits of courtroom confrontation. The first drafts of what would eventually become one of the most tightly written scripts in American film history started on those napkins in a dark theater bar. Sorkin turned his notes into a stage play. It opened first at the University of Virginia on September 19, 1989, then moved to the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., and finally landed on Broadway at the Music Box Theater in November 1989. It ran for 497 performances. Film producer David Brown had heard about the play before it even opened on Broadway and bought the rights to adapt it into a movie before the first night audience ever took their seats. The napkins became a Broadway hit. The Broadway hit became a movie. And the movie became one of the most tested films in Columbia Pictures history, reportedly scoring higher in test screenings than any film the studio had ever run through the National Research Group. Not bad for a bartender with good handwriting. Number 3. The Pentagon said no, and the whole movie had to be faked. Top Gun got jets and aircraft carriers. A Few Good Men got nothing. The United States Department of Defense read the script and refused to cooperate with the production. The military did not want any part of a film suggesting that senior officers ordered illegal punishments against their own men, and then lied about it to cover it up. No bases, no ships, no official support of any kind. This created a serious problem for a movie that was supposed to take place inside the most controlled military environment on Earth. The filmmakers had to find workarounds for everything. California's Naval Air Station Point Mugu was used as a stand-in for Guantanamo Bay because it had the right look without requiring any cooperation from the Pentagon. Sound stages filled in for military rooms and hallways. The courtroom scenes were shot in a real civilian courthouse because the filmmakers could not access any military court facility. And as it turned out, that was actually a lucky break. Real military courtrooms are mostly plain offices. The civilian courtroom looked far more dramatic on camera than the real thing would have. The opening of the film shows a full Marine Corps marching band and a famous silent drill performance. None of those men were actually Marines. They were members of the Texas A and M University Corps of Cadets Fish Drill Team, a reserve officer training corps unit that agreed to appear where the real military would not. The Pentagon's rejection meant the whole movie had to be built from scratch. Audiences had no idea. Number 4. Tom Cruise got paid $12 million. Jack Nicholson got $5 million. And Nicholson only worked 10 days. The money story behind A Few Good Men is almost as dramatic as the movie itself. Entertainment Weekly published a detailed breakdown of the production costs in November 1992, about a month before the film opened. The total budget ran somewhere between $33 million and $40 million depending on the source. Tom Cruise, as the lead, took home around $12 million. Director Rob Reiner earned $4 million for his work. Demi Moore, who accepted the role for less than her usual rate, was paid $2 million. Kevin Bacon and Kiefer Sutherland earned $650,000 and $250,000, respectively. And then there was Jack Nicholson. Nicholson received $5 million for the role of Colonel Jessup. That sounds reasonable until you look at how long he was actually on set. By most accounts, Nicholson filmed all of his scenes in approximately 10 days of shooting. That works out to $500,000 per day. The studio also spent $300,000 on makeup and hairstyling for the whole production, $85,000 on 2 personal drivers for Cruise, and $55,000 on his private plane and security. Demi Moore's personal trainer alone cost the production $22,000. Nicholson later reflected on his paycheck and said it was one of the few times in his career when he felt the money was worth it. For 10 days of work that included one of the greatest scenes ever put on film. That is an understatement. Number 5. The most famous line in the movie was never in the script. 5 words. That is all it took to make Jack Nicholson's performance immortal. You can't handle the truth. Those 5 words are on coffee mugs, posters, sales training videos, and Simpsons episodes. They are probably the most quoted line Jack Nicholson has ever spoken. And Aaron Sorkin, the man who wrote every other word in the movie, did not write them. The original screenplay had Nicholson's character, Colonel Jessup, responding to Cruise's demand for the truth with a different line entirely. The original version was, "You already have the truth." Nicholson changed it. He simply felt those words were more powerful, more in keeping with who Jessup was, and more likely to explode off the screen. He delivered the new line during filming, and nobody stopped him. Nobody asked him to go back to the script. The room understood immediately that something better had just happened. Director Rob Reiner later recalled that Nicholson enjoyed delivering that line so much that he kept performing the entire scene repeatedly, on his own, just for the pleasure of it. Kiefer Sutherland, who was in the courtroom for the filming of that scene, described watching Nicholson deliver the whole speech in one take, completely flawlessly, in a way that left the entire crew standing still and silent. Reiner whispered to Nicholson, asking if he wanted to do another take. Nicholson said they were already there, so they did another one. Reiner sent everyone home early. He knew he had already captured something that could not be topped. Number 6. Jodie Foster and Linda Hamilton both wanted the role that went to Demi Moore. Casting Lieutenant Commander Joanne Galloway was harder than it looked. The role required an actress who could stand next to Tom Cruise and hold her own without being overshadowed, who could argue military law with enough force to make a room believe her, and who could carry scenes with Jack Nicholson without blinking. 2 major names came very close before the part was decided. Jodie Foster was considered. Linda Hamilton was considered. Both passed through the process without landing the role. Then Demi Moore came in to read for it. Moore wanted the part badly enough that she agreed to take a significant pay cut from her usual fee, accepting $2 million when she could have commanded far more. She described the role as genderless, meaning the character's strength was not built around being a woman in a man's world, but simply around being the smartest and most committed person in the room. That was the version of Galloway she wanted to play. There was one other detail. When Moore showed up to audition, she was 8 months pregnant with her second daughter, Scout Willis. She waddled into the reading in her pregnant state and gave the audition anyway. By the time filming began, she had given birth and was working hard to get into physical shape for a role that required her to look like a credible military officer. She later said she started working out and trying to get into condition even before her daughter was born, driven by a desire to prove that a working mother could handle a major film role. Tom Cruise, she recalled, seemed quite uncomfortable during the early rehearsals. He was not used to blocking scenes with a pregnant co-star. She could tell it was awkward for him, though she personally felt fine about it. Number 7. The lead Marine defendant had never acted before. He was the location scout. Rob Reiner spent a long time trying to find the right actor to play Lance Corporal Harold Dawson, the Marine at the center of the court-martial. Dawson had to be someone who looked like a person who had committed to the military completely, someone who radiated honor and stubbornness and genuine belief, not as a performance, but as a physical fact. Reiner could not find that in the usual casting pool. The answer was already working on the film. Wolfgang Bodison was not an actor. He was a former mailroom worker at Castle Rock Entertainment who had become Rob Reiner's personal assistant and then moved into location scouting for the production. One day, Reiner looked at him and realized that Bodison had exactly the physical presence and the quality of stillness the role needed. He asked Bodison to read for the part. Bodison had never acted professionally. He hired an acting coach, prepared seriously, and landed the role of Dawson in a major Hollywood film starring Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson. After A Few Good Men, Bodison went on to appear in several other films. But his entrance into the profession is one of the stranger stories in this movie's history. The man who carried the heaviest moral weight in the film was chosen not from a casting call, but from a production office hallway. Number 8. The studio demanded a sex scene. Sorkin hated writing it, and it got cut anyway. Aaron Sorkin was fiercely protective of his play. When it came time to adapt it into a screenplay, the studio stepped in with notes. One of those notes asked why the characters of Kaffee and Galloway had not slept together. The romantic tension between Cruise and Moore was there on screen. The studio wanted to make it explicit. A sex scene was requested. Sorkin had strong reservations. Nothing like that happens in the stage play. The relationship between Kaffee and Galloway is built on professional friction and mutual respect, not romance. Adding a physical relationship would change the meaning of everything between them. But this was Sorkin's first screenplay, and the studio had leverage. He wrote the scene in, against his own instincts. The scene was filmed, and then, in the editing process, it was cut from the finished film. Everything Sorkin had been uncomfortable about wound up on the cutting room floor anyway. The movie worked exactly as his original instincts had said it would, with two professionals who respected each other and nothing more. The studio's interference left no trace. Number 9. Nicholson's courtroom scene was filmed in a civilian courthouse, and his concentration was broken by Kevin Pollak's mother. Jack Nicholson's final courtroom scene is one of the most intensely focused performances ever captured on camera. The building pressure, the jaw tightening, the eyes widening, the explosion of the truth speech, all of it required complete concentration and no distractions. Nicholson found one distraction impossible to ignore. Kevin Pollak, who played Lieutenant Sam Weinberg, had brought his mother to the set that day. During one of the takes, as Nicholson was building towards the peak of Jessup's meltdown, Kevin Pollak's mother walked up and introduced herself. She made clear she found Nicholson attractive. She was openly flirtatious with him while he was trying to deliver one of the most demanding scenes of his career. Pollak was mortified. Nicholson was a professional. He handled it, finished the scene, and the moment became one of the more absurd behind-the-scenes stories from a production that had no shortage of them. Pollak and Moore's reactions in the courtroom during Cruise's famous Nicholson impression were also completely genuine and unscripted. Nobody warned them Cruise was going to do a spot-on imitation of Nicholson in the middle of a scene. Number 10. Tom Cruise flew to New York and saw the Broadway show before he would agree to be in the movie. Tom Cruise does not walk into projects blind. By 1991, he was one of the biggest stars in the world. Top Gun had made him a global name. born on the 4th of July, had proven he could act at the highest level. When the offer for A Few Good Men came to him, he was interested but cautious. He wanted to understand what he was agreeing to before he signed anything. So Cruise flew to New York and bought a ticket to see the Broadway version of A Few Good Men while it was still running. He sat in the audience at the Music Box Theater and watched the play that Sorkin had built from those cocktail napkin notes. He watched the character of Kaffee on stage and understood what the role required. He read the character as someone who hid a sharp legal mind behind a lazy exterior, who had spent his whole career avoiding real fights, and who finally had to decide what kind of man he was going to be. That was a role worth taking. Cruise accepted. His insistence on seeing the source material first is part of why his performance works as well as it does. He understood Kaffee from the inside before he ever put on the uniform. Number 11. The word "sir" is spoken 164 times in the movie. That is once every 50 seconds. Aaron Sorkin built A Few Good Men on rhythm. The dialogue moves like music, with every line carrying weight and every pause meaning something. What nobody noticed until someone sat down and counted is just how deep the military language runs in the script. The word "sir" appears in the finished film approximately 164 times. That works out to roughly one "sir" every 50 seconds, across the film's 2-hour and 18-minute runtime. No other word in the movie appears with that kind of frequency. Not truth, not order, not honor. The word that shows up more than any other is the one that defines the power structure the whole film is built around. Every "sir" is a reminder of who gives orders and who follows them, who has rank and who has to answer to it, who is protected by the system and who gets chewed up by it. Sorkin embedded that word so deep into the fabric of the story that it stopped being noticeable and started being part of the air the characters breathed. The film that used it most deliberately is also the film that made it feel most invisible. Number 12. The military courtroom scenes were shot in a civilian courthouse because the real thing was too plain. Here is something that military lawyers have known and laughed about for years. In the real United States Armed Forces, court-martial proceedings do not take place in grand rooms with high ceilings and formal wooden benches. They take place in offices. Standard government offices with fluorescent lighting and folding chairs, and all the visual drama of a DMV waiting room. The formal, imposing courtroom that audiences watch Cruise and Nicholson battle inside does not look anything like where real military justice actually happens. The production chose a civilian courthouse specifically because it looked like what audiences expected a serious legal proceeding to look like. It was more photogenic, more intimidating, more cinematic. The irony is that the United States Air Force Judge Advocate General's training program later began using clips from A Few Good Men in its curriculum as examples, not as inspiration, as warnings. The film shows lawyers making arguments and courtroom moves that real military lawyers are specifically taught not to do. A fictional Hollywood courtroom drama, built in a civilian courthouse, became part of the official training material for actual military legal professionals, serving as a guide for what to avoid. Number 13. The film tested so high, it moved its own release date to beat Jack Nicholson's other movie. Columbia Pictures ran A Few Good Men through test screenings before its December 1992 release, as studios routinely do. What came back from those screenings was not routine at all. The film reportedly scored higher in testing than any other movie the National Research Group had ever evaluated for the studio. Columbia chairman Mark Canton went on record saying the numbers were extraordinary. The studio moved fast. There was a reason to hurry. Jack Nicholson's other 1992 film, Hoffa, directed by Danny DeVito, was already scheduled to open on December 11, 1992. Columbia did not want a competing Nicholson film beating A Few Good Men into theaters. The original release date for A Few Good Men was December 18th. The studio moved it up to December 11th to land on the same day as Hoffa, so both films would open simultaneously, and neither would have a clear week's head start. 2 Jack Nicholson films opened on the exact same day because a test screening came back so strong that a studio rearranged its calendar. A Few Good Men went on to earn $243 million worldwide. Hoffa earned around $24 million. The race was not particularly close. Number 14. The film earned 4 Oscar nominations, but Tom Cruise was not among them. When the Academy Award nominations came out in February 1993, A Few Good Men had 4 of them: Best Picture, Best Film Editing, Best Sound, and Best Supporting Actor for Jack Nicholson. It was the 10th Oscar nomination of Nicholson's career, He had already won twice, for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Terms of Endearment. A third seemed genuinely possible, but Tom Cruise received nothing. The actor who carried the film from its first scene to its last, who built Kaffee from a lazy plea bargain specialist into someone willing to bet his career on a single explosive moment of cross-examination, was completely ignored. Cruise had not been nominated for Born on the 4th of July either, despite winning the Golden Globe for it. The Oscars and Tom Cruise have had a complicated relationship throughout his career, and A Few Good Men is one of the clearest examples of that gap between popular success and formal recognition. The movie became one of the biggest of his career. His co-star got the nomination. Cruise walked away with a massive box office hit and no statue. Number 15. The real-life incident the movie was based on ended very differently from what you saw on screen. The film closes with Colonel Jessup in handcuffs, Dawson and Downey guilty, but discharged with honor, and some version of justice served. The truth came out. The powerful man faced consequences. It is a satisfying ending, the kind Hollywood knows how to build. The real 1986 Guantanamo case did not end quite so cleanly. The real Willie, the Marine who was attacked after reporting his fellow serviceman, survived his injuries. He did not die the way the character in the film does. 7 of the 9 Marines involved in the real attack took discharges rather than face court-martial proceedings. The 2 who chose to fight the charges had their cases heard, but without the dramatic confession on a witness stand, without the commanding officer breaking under cross-examination, without the scene that made the movie famous. The real cover-up, to whatever degree it existed, did not unravel in a single breathtaking courtroom moment. It unraveled slowly, through paperwork and discharges, and men quietly leaving military service. Aaron Sorkin took a messy, imperfect, true story and gave it the ending that truth rarely provides. The ending where someone stands up and says the wrong thing in front of the wrong audience and everything falls apart for them in real time. The ending where the truth is not just discovered, but spoken out loud, at full volume, in front of witnesses. That ending is what made A Few Good Men a film people are still watching more than 30 years later. Not because it showed how things actually go, but because it showed how they should. But here is the question we are leaving you with today. Colonel Jessup ordered that code red because he genuinely believed he was protecting his men and his country. He was wrong about how he did it. But was he completely wrong about why? Drop your answer in the comments. We want to know if you think Jessup was a villain, a broken hero, or something the movie never quite names. No right answer, just your honest take. If this video gave you something to think about, hit like, share it with someone who loves a good courtroom story, and subscribe so you never miss the moment we go deep on a movie you thought you already knew everything about. And right now, on your screen, there is exactly one video waiting for you. My Cousin Vinny, 1992, 15 insane facts you never knew. Another courtroom. Another underdog. Another true story buried under 30 years of movie legend. Click it. You are already in the right mood.